We're in a lost signal period right now, the Discovery out over the Indian Ocean. Part of the way, about a quarter of the way through orbit number 2. And pick up again in 3 minutes, 20 seconds through Yargity.
Discovery Houston, we're with you through Hawaii for the next 8.5 minutes.
You're loud, Lacey, with about a 2-second delayed echo. Maybe 1 second.
This has been Control. Our payload bay camera view is of the nozzle of the inertial upper stage.
Discovery Houston, you're go for internal transfer. You read me now, Mike.
That's much better. And go for internal power.
Roger that.
Lounge has the go-ahead to transfer the IUS to internal power in preparation for the payload data checkout of IUS. It's one of the early checks before deployment of the satellite.
Discovery Houston, your go for the pre-deploy checkout.
Roger, go for the checkout.
This is Mission Control. Lounge is beginning the pre-deploy checkout of the inertial upper stage. Later, a little later in the timeline, he'll also do a pre-deploy checkout of the tracking data relay satellite itself. This is Mission Control. The nozzle is being gimbaled, moved by as part of the process in the pre-deploy checkout for the IUS.
Houston, Discovery, pre-deploy checkout complete. We're on the batteries for 5 minutes.
We copy that, Discovery, and Sunnyvale confirms a good pre-deploy checkout.
This is Mission Control. Following that successful pre-deploy checkout of the IUS, the next step in the checklist is a direct check of the IUS. The Sunnyvale ground station will be sending commands to IUS as a checkout procedure to make sure that the IUS is able to receive command properly before it's deployed in the payload bay.
Discovery, we're about 5 seconds to Hawaii LOS. We'll have about a 1 minute dropout while we hand over to TDRS.
Roger.
And Mike, Sunnyvale standing by for the check.
Okay, going to RF now.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we're here for our change of shift press conference, the first one for STS-26, and we have with us the off-going flight director, Gary Cohen. I'll turn it over to Gary to give you a rundown on what's happened during the ascent shift, and then we'll go to questions here and at the other centers. Gary?
Okay, thank you. Shift went fairly well today in terms of the operations in Mission Control. I do have some facts for you, and I do have some items, issues that we have in work in the control center at the current time. Liftoff was delayed this morning. It lifted off at 10:36 Central, 10:36:59.973 if you need exact times. Had a good ascent. The first stage was slightly depressed as expected from pre-launch winds analysis. The throttle bucket was just what was expected. The throttle bucket is a period of the main engine's throttle back to relieve the QR constraints on the orbiter. Performance was normal. The boundaries, the abort boundaries that we compute and call in the control center in case of engine out, so that we will be able to decide where and when to go if we lose an engine. Those were pretty close to the normal expected, so we didn't see any problems with performance. The velocity that we expected at main cutoff was within 2 feet per second of what we had computed pre-mission. The noise level on that velocity was 4 feet per second anyhow, so we did real well. The current orbit is 163.1 by 159.9. We did accomplish our E-tracking test over the Pacific near Hawaii. We are working two problems that I believe are worth discussing having to do with the orbiter status. One is a failure that we have in the OMS thrust vector control system. As you most likely know, the OMS can be pointed, and the pointing system that we are dealing with has to do with... Let me make sure I tell you the proper engine. I always get lefts and rights confused.
I think we said left.
It's a left OMS engine. And it was the secondary TVC on the left OMS engine. We lost what's called a remote power controller, which is one of the device that provides power to that particular TVC loop. That problem occurred pre-launch, so we knew that there was a good possibility that that particular servo loop was not going to be functional in terms of being able to supply enough electrical current excuse me, to allow the engine to be moved. We can position the engine, but we don't think with that particular servo loop that we can use it for thrust vector control during Ohm's maneuvers. Remember that there are 2 servo loops on each engine, so we can obviously use the other servo loop. In terms of dealing with the problem for the ascent phase, in effect, it was a minor problem and we didn't have to deal with it. We've decided that we would do operation normal. The crew has training on what to do if they lose servo loops. We decided that those procedures would, another failure happened on that servo system. We decided those procedures were perfectly adequate, so we in effect took no action. There may be some further work with the other Ohm's burns that are going to occur on this mission. There may be some further work to decide whether we need to optimize the plans for the maneuvers. The other problem that we're working actively in the control center has to do with flash evaporator system. We have a set of ducts that allow the steam to come out of the evaporators. The evaporators are used for cooling when we don't have the payload bay doors open. When we have the doors open, we can accomplish cooling through another separate system and cool the orbiter off. The evaporators, in effect, evaporate water and cause a set of heat exchangers to cool off, which cools off the freon in the orbiter, which in turn is passed through various components in the orbiter to do cooling, the electronics and the cabin heat exchangers and whatnot. To make a long story short, there was some condensation, we believe, in the ducts when we lifted off, and subsequently controllers that automatically control the amount of water that goes into these ducts for cooling they did not fail, but based on the warm readings, based on the readings that they were seeing, decided to add water to the system. As a result, the ducts are at least partially frozen. We ran the evaporators prior to opening the payload bay doors, and as a function, they were able to accomplish the cooling function on the orbiter. When we got after opening the payload bay doors, we allowed the cooling to occur from the evaporators, so the ducts are in effect right now not required. We will be doing some work in the near future to see if there's any way to see what ways there are to speed up the thawing out of the icing that's occurring in the cooler. We did take one minor step before I left the control center towards accomplishing some thawing, and that was to increase the setting that we allow the freon to run through the system, so that at least that would supply a little heat to the ducts that are frozen. And I might say that they're not completely frozen, so we have not decided that those ducts are failed, because we did get function out of the systems. Although the function fluctuated, we did get function out of those systems before we went off of the flash evaporators. I'd like to go ahead and open up the floor to questions, particularly anything that has to do with the ascent team's activities today or the cruise operations.
Okay. Well,
on its internal battery power, the TDRS has its own batteries, as does the IUS. We expect Lloyd to be at Schneider's time 6 hours 13 minutes, or that's 4:50 p.m. Central Time. This mission control.
Minutes.
Loud and clear, Houston.
You're 5 squared also, Mike.
And you can take cabin TV at will.
Okay, we copy that. Discovery, we're going to take TV to prevent interference with the PI.
Deploy of the payload coming up in about 6 minutes on TV. However, the crew will be recording it on videotape to be played back later. Right now, that's scheduled for 6:18 p.m. Central Time for the playback. We will not take cabin TV on this pass so that we will not interfere with the payload interrogator during the deploy activities. 3.5 minutes from deploy of the tracking data relay satellite. We'll be expecting a call from the crew, giving us a visual confirmation they watched the satellite and IUS combination leave the payload bay. Mission elapsed time 6 hours and 9 minutes. This is Mission Control. Mission Control, we're 45 seconds away from deploy. We're expecting to hear a description from the crew of how the payload looks as it is released from the payload bay.
Jet deployed at Houston.
Roger, Discovery.
Of the inertial upper stage, releasing it from the payload bay.
TDRS for 50 minutes.
Clear.
Your 5 also.
Move on into the post-deploy operations. Specialist Mike Lamb will be lowering the table back down flush into the payload bay of the orbiter and refastening the payload retention latch assemblies that hold that tilt table in place. At about elapsed time 6 hours and 3 minutes, about 14 minutes now, the orbiter will maneuver to the IUS viewing attitude so that the crew can continue to observe the IUS combination as it drifts away from the orbit. And
LOS, and we'll see you at Guam, UHF only at 7:29. Half a day, Tau Guam, Discovery. We're talking to you through the Dan Dan track site. Greetings from the people of Guam, and congratulations from everybody at the Dan Dan station for a successful deploy.
Well, we sure appreciate it, but we know it's a big team effort, so thanks very much.
Discovery, we're happy to report that we had a good SRM-1. Everything's nominal.
Well, that's the second best thing we've heard today.
Okay, we'd like to talk to you a little bit about the cabin temp and the high load problem. We'll get a call in a few minutes about that.
Okay, good enough. And we'll be ready to downlink the deploy TV over Hawaii for you.
Okay, sounds good.
satellite following the first ignition of the solid rocket motor carrying that satellite on into geosynchronous orbit. As you can see, the orbit track is in a yellow color as opposed to the white of the orbit track of the shuttle. Right now, the tracking arc makes it look like the IUS is right in front of the shuttle. However, in space, it is actually at a much higher altitude than the orbiter Discovery.
Discovery, we're 1 minute to Guam, LS, and we'll see you next at Hawaii at 7:41.
The crew in about 6 minutes through the Hawaii tracking station. During that pass over Hawaii, we expect to get a playback of the videotape of the tracking data relay satellite deploy. That's scheduled for 6:18 p.m. Central Time. Once again, that'll be a playback videotape of the deploy of the TDRS satellite. This is Mission Control.
We're talking to you through the Covey tracking station for the next 8.5 minutes.
Hello there. And loud and clear, but with an echo.
Discovery, everybody at the Covey station sends you a very fond aloha and congratulations for a successful mission and best wishes for continued success.
Well, we appreciate that, and we appreciate all the work they put into helping us talk to you.
Roger that, and we're ready for the VTR playback now. Discovery Houston, go ahead and start the VTR dump. Discovery Houston, radio check.
Okay, Lacey, you should see, we got it queued up just about 15 seconds before the deployment.
Okay, go ahead and roll at any time, Mike.
Okay, you should be getting a picture now. This is really a pretty satellite, really some gorgeous views out the window through the distance, and I hope we cap a lot of that on film. There you see a very smooth separation. We heard nothing and felt nothing in the cabin when that separated.
It looks great, Mike.
Deployment from our point of view, and we understand well on its way to geosynchronous by now.
That's affirmative, and that's a beautiful shot there.
Yeah, back against the Earth really is spectacular. We let this camera run for quite a while, Lacey. You can take as much as you like. When you get tired of it, you can come inside and peek at Yankee on the middeck doing some protein crystal growth science.
Okay, we copy that. Sounds good. And while we're watching this, we've got a switch action over L1 for you.
Go ahead.
Okay, we'd like to check the H2O loop 2 bypass mode to manual, and then take manual to decrease for 10 seconds.
Good work. That's complete, Lacey.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Discovery. Then we'd like you to go ahead and drive that in manual a little bit further. We want you to go ahead and drive it. Hold the switch until you see it interchanger at full decrease.
Okay, that's in work.
Discovery.
Go ahead.
Discovery, Houston. We're ready to talk with you a little bit about the high load evap whenever you have a minute.
Stand by. Go ahead, words.
Okay, looks like to us that we probably had a buildup of ice in the high load during ascent, which has contributed to the problems there. And we're on mid-deck TV right now, by the way. Not sure how much of an ice buildup we have, but we are running, as you know, at the high set point on the Freon loops, and we also have the heat on to help out with problem. And we're going to stay in that configuration as overnight at least, and then look at it again in the morning. We've had you run the loop to a full decrease, and we hope that we'll bring down the cabin temp a little bit. We'd like your feedback on the comfort level in the cabin right now. We've been looking at a couple of possibilities, SSR-6 and also the Group E priority power down as a way to reduce cabin heat loads if you think that's necessary, but we'd like some feedback from you on that.
I think pretty comfortable now, Lacey. As a matter of fact, if we want to be a little warmer than normal, we come topside, and if we want to be a little cooler, we go down to the middeck, and so far we're in good shape.
Okay, that sounds good. That pretty much syncs up with what we understand about 41 when we saw this same sort of thing before. Discovery, we've got about a minute to Hawaii LOS, and then we'll have a short dropout before we pick you up through TDRS. Discovery, I talked over you again.
Reports from downstairs, PCG activation plates.
Okay, we can.
Bingo. Director for the next event will be the change of briefing with outgoing flight director Chuck Shaw. It will begin at approximately 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time in the Teague Auditorium. That's the change of shift briefing.
Out to what went on flight day working shift, and then we'll take questions. Chuck?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Billy. I've been looking forward all day long to come over here and confirm to you what I think you probably already know, that America, your shuttle and your crew are in place where they belong, and they're doing just fine. I told Gary Cohen, the ascent flight director, at handover this morning, it's going to be a tough act to follow after such a beautiful ascent. And we gave our best shot. I think we have come up with a shift that we're real proud of. The major activity, as you know, during this entire shift was the deploy of the tracking data relay satellite and inertial upper stage. The activities leading up to that, of course, were during Rev 3, we did the checkout of the IUS and the RF links between the IUS and the Consolidated Space Test Center out at Sunnyvale, Onizuka Air Force Base. Those all went absolutely perfectly. The latter part of that pass, Rev and the first part of Rev 4 were dedicated to checkout of the tracking and data relay site itself. All of those checks were perfectly nominal. We were very happy with all of that. On Rev 5, we deployed the IUS, the crew deployed the IUS TDRS at 6 hours, 13 minutes, and 4 seconds, exactly on time. And we performed a 31 foot per second separation maneuver to get away from it to a safe SEP distance. We were about 38.4 miles away when first stage solid rocket motor burn occurred on the IUS. That burn occurred about 7 hours and 13 minutes MET. It was a 152 second long burn. It's about 8,013 foot per second velocity increase on the IUS TDRS. That put the vehicle into a 19,375 mile by 161 mile transfer orbit. It's in that orbit now. About 12 hours and 28 minutes mission elapsed time. The IUS jettisoned the first stage rocket motor and batteries that it's been using during the transfer orbit. And about a minute and a half later, the second stage burn, SRM2, will occur. That'll be about a 5,810 foot per second burn. It'll last somewhere around 105 seconds, followed by a CS trim burn. Then the IUS will separate from the tracking and data relay satellite after appendage deploy sequence. We'll have a second tracking and data relay satellite on orbit at about 178 degrees west longitude. So we're looking forward to watching that. It should end up in about a 19,323 mile circular orbit, which is geostationary. The crew's been doing real good. They've been in good humor, as we all have, because we're glad we're back in space. We put the crew to bed about 10 hours mission elapsed time, exactly on schedule. And crew wake up is scheduled for 18 hours mission elapsed time in the morning. The orbiter's in real good shape. We have one thing to talk about that's a little off nominal. That's our status of the flash evaporator. There's a little ice buildup in the flash evaporator, which has impaired its operation. Right now, we've got the Freon coolant loops set at the high level, which means their output's at about 58 degrees. And we've got the high-low duct heaters on, which is really all we can do right now, and just let the ice thaw out. It's a long, slow process to let it defrost, kind of like your freezer when you have to defrost at home. We believe there was a little water in the system, probably a little water in the system at liftoff from condensate or whatever. And, that water, of course, you know, as we get into a vacuum, it'll flash, and we believe probably just caused some ice in the system that's impairing its operation. We're in the mode to thaw it out, and so we don't currently see problems with that. We probably won't have it thawed out by tomorrow. We anticipate staying in the same configuration, which is a completely stable and configuration for the vehicle. The cabin's a little warm. We had the crew change the water interchanger configuration to bring the temperature down. When I left the control center, the cabin temperature was, I believe it was in the mid to lower 80s, which these guys all live in Houston, so they're used to that temperature. That's kind of a cool day here in Houston. We asked Rick about that because we were prepared to turn some equipment off in the crew cabin to further lower the heat load, but he said it's comfortable. It's warm up on the flight deck and cool on the mid deck, so depending on who wanted to be warm, who wanted to be cool, they had a place to go. The crew started some of their mid deck operations per the cap, so the timeline right now is perfectly nominal. And with that, I don't have anything else. Our timeline tomorrow is planned to be exactly as per the cap with mid-deck operations, since we don't have to use the backup deploy activities in the cap. And I have nothing else, I guess. We can open it up for questions. Oh, I have one announcement, I'm sorry. Steve Nesbitt, Public Affairs, announced today that the beautiful flowers that we've got sitting on top of the flight director console were presented by security. I think they're the ones carried in. They were presented with prayers and best wishes by the Citizen Administration of St. John's Hospital, so we thank them very much for that.